Well, good afternoon to you. It's 5:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. I hope you do. Always appreciate your contributions. Let's bring in the Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Winsome Sears, is with us. Lieutenant Governor, great to have you back with us.
Hey, Vince, it's good to be back, and welcome to your listeners.
Thank you very, very much. I want to get to your book here in just a moment. You have a brand new book out, How Sweet It Is, Defending the American Dream, talking about your incredible life. But first and foremost, I want to talk about the business of Virginia. There is a story that our audience is definitely very interested in, I'm interested in, which is that there are a number of school districts in Virginia right now, school systems, who are in open insurrection against the voters who put you and Governor Youngkin into office. Fairfax County, Prince William County, Loudoun County is at the moment undecided on the subject, but they are all either openly defying or preparing to the transgender student policies that your administration put forward. What do you make of this decision by these school districts to outright refuse to follow the law, and what consequences will there be for doing that?
You know, Vince, it's very interesting. We, the Youngkin administration, we are on the side of parents. That's it. And we don't want to get between the parent and child relationship. And so we're not wanting the school boards to do that either. And so the administration put forward policies after hearing from over 70,000 Virginians on their opinions about these new transgender policies. And there's nothing controversial about it. What it says is that all students will be given their privacy. Imagine that. Then it says all students will be treated with dignity. All students. Finally, it says all students will be treated with respect. Now, for some people, apparently that's controversial. And then we're saying parents' rights will be respected at all times. And what you're finding is while we in Virginia are trying to bring more teachers into the profession, they are really driving teachers out of the profession because here's the deal. The teachers don't know one week to the next. What are we doing this week? Who are we not offending this week? What can we say this week that will be okay?
Yeah.
I mean, this is nonsense. And so we are hoping that these school boards will come to their senses because the governor has been charged with bringing forth these policies, and they need to be adhered to.
Yes, well, but as you know, when dealing with these psychopaths, let's be honest, in many cases, hope is not enough because the only thing they're going to respond to is some sort of pressure or force. Are there meaningful consequences for them to be in violation of the law here?
Well, I can tell you that this is something that the governor and the attorney general will be looking into. I am not a lawyer, so, these legal matters, I have to be sure that I'm, leaving it to them. But what we can say is we will err on the side of parents every single time. And this is also another reason why I have been pushing for parents to be able to make the decision on where to send their children to school. Because you see, Vince, once you have competition in education, suddenly people start wising up. Oh, did the parents really want to be involved in their children's education after all? Yes. Imagine that. And so we didn't get, very far this past session with it, but that's all right. We are going to keep pushing. We don't give up because parents have said that they want to make these decisions for their children. It shouldn't be that only if you have the, funds that you can opt out of whatever school, homeschool or whatever.
Yeah.
We want all parents to make that decision.
Yeah.
And Vince, the kids aren't even learning. I mean, let's get back to the foundational issue of what is the purpose of school, Vince.
100%.
So,
I agree with you. And as history looks back at your administration, it'll definitely judge you based on, and you and the governor, of course, on how successful you are in fighting for those parental rights and fighting for those families and fighting for those educational opportunities for children. And I know that go ahead.
Yeah. And by the way, this is not, attack against public schools. No. What we're saying is it's public school, private school, homeschool, tutoring, whatever the parents want to do. It's not a either or, it's a and. So let the parents make a decision. You want to stay in public school? Fine. You want to do homeschool? Fine. You want a private school, parochial school? Whatever it is, you're the parent. You're in charge. We are not going to make laws and policies that separate you, parent, from your child. And then your child comes home confused, and you don't know why you have a child on your hand who needs extra help. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me one final thought on this, and then I want to move to your book here on the issue of the transgender policy in the state. I'm petitioning you, the Lieutenant Governor, on behalf of my listeners too, that we definitely would like to know what the consequences are going to be for these school districts. And I know that you mentioned you're not a lawyer on this subject. I believe we have Jason Miyares joining us very soon. Yeah, later this week. We're expecting him on Thursday. The Attorney General is going to join us. I'm going to also put this question to him. But on behalf of all Virginia residents, certainly in my audience, we'd love to see, some aggression, more aggression from the administration directed at these schools that are saying, basically flipping the bird to the people of Virginia who voted you into office, Lieutenant Governor.
Well, I mean, look, I'm just as upset about it as everybody else. And so, again, that's why I'm pushing for school choice.
Amen.
And he can answer that much more than I can,
Yep.
But what I'm saying is there's an election this year, everyone. And we have got to make sure that we get to the polls and get to the polls early. We can't start, thousands, tens of thousands even at times down on election day. Go absentee ballot vote. I'm voting absentee ballot this year. And when I got my letter confirming that I am now on that roll, you know what it said to me, Vince? It says, from now on, you will receive a ballot mailed to your home for every special election, a ballot mailed to your home for every primary election, a ballot mailed to your home for every general election. I don't have to leave my house. That means 45 days, Vince, before anybody who goes to the poll and votes. I have a ballot sitting on my kitchen table. If we really care, we've got to get to the polls through the absentee ballots, please, because voting makes all the difference.
It's totally critical, and it'll give you the ability to actually get things through the state legislature that make people's lives a lot better, which absolutely has to happen in Virginia.
Yes, need to win the Senate and keep the House.
Yes, amen. All right, let me ask you about the book, How Sweet It Is, Defending the American Dream. Tell us why you set out to write this book and what people will learn as they go through it.
Well, Vince, you don't ever think that you have an interesting life. You're just living. And I've had a great deal of tragedy in my life. Tragedy was what caused me to join the Marine Corps, and so many different things. How do you handle when you have the sheriff show up at your home at the proverbial 2-3 o'clock in the morning and telling you that your children have died, and so you come up from that, you rise from the ashes, and so when people have heard a little bit of my story, they said, hey, maybe you can help inspire somebody else, especially people who've lost children. And so I wrote it, and I hope that people can understand. You can't walk around in your bedroom slippers and your robe. You got to keep living, especially if you have children left. And for you've got to move forward.
Yes.
Otherwise, what else is there?
Mm-hmm. Lieutenant Governor, how pivotal you're referencing? I know it's with great emotion. I'm sure it will be for the rest of your life. But you're referencing the loss of both your daughter and your grandchildren back in 2012. Is that right?
Yes.
And as you reflect on that now, and you write about it in the book, how important was that moment in your life towards like your judgment about the way that you would be a public servant and what kind of future you wanted?
Well, for me, I've always been about service. I saw it modeled in my home. I saw other people around me who did it. They cared about helping people to the point of sacrificial giving and sacrificial helping. And I ran a men's prison ministry for 2 years. Loved it. And then I also had a homeless shelter that I was part of when I was working for the Salvation Army for women and children. So helping is not, and service is not something that happened after my children. But let me tell you what happened after my children went to heaven was that I became more aware that life is very short and we need to forgive people, number one. You've heard the saying that unforgiveness is when you drink poison thinking it hurts the other person. So forgive and move on. It's good for your mental health. Also, I also think service is important. I mean, when this life is over, what is the point of it? Why were you here? Was it just to make money? Was it just to make a name for yourself? Do you feel good about how you've lived? So it's all of that. And then it's also me saying to people, you're never too old to do what you think you might be able to do. Don't be 40 and wonder. Don't be 60 and wonder. I didn't start college, for example, until I was 25 and had 3 children under 5. And here I am. And so keep going, keep striving. Life is not promised to anybody. So get up and get out there and don't let anybody talk you out of your dreams. Try. You never know. You just never know.
Have you found satisfaction in this job, being Lieutenant Governor of Virginia?
Well, I got to tell you, there are days when, things hit you hard and you wonder, did I really ask for this? And there are other days you say, I can't believe I get to do this. I can't believe that I get to speak into children's lives, for example, when I'm talking to them at their high school and saying, look, you are charged with nothing less than the preservation of America for the next generation, and that you have to take your place in society. Or when I get to talk to people who, like me, have they might think they've blossomed late in life. I was talking with Tidewater Community College, the graduates, and I said, look, how many of you thought you could never get this degree? How many of you just had so much work to do and then thought, I'm not going to make it, I'm going to drop out again? And here you are. You keep persevering. And then, there's no place, Vince, like America. And you know who keeps telling us that? The people who are trying to come in at the border.
Yes.
They're even throwing their kids over the fence because they know that America is still the place of second chances. Now, I say you got to do it the right way. We have to know who's coming in. We are a land of laws after all, and fentanyl is coming across the border. You've got sex trafficking. But those people, they are telling us that they believe in the American dream still, and they want America to remain America, and that's what my book is about.
And you say that,
the American dream.
And you say that as an immigrant to America. You were born in Jamaica. You immigrated to the United States.
Yep.
You've lived the American dream. You served our country honorably as a United States Marine. Your husband as well. You really do have an amazing story.
Yes, and that's why I hope that it will inspire someone, to say yes. I may be 59, but I'm going to go do this thing. Finally, I've always wondered, what if? Don't die wondering what if. Yeah. And again, just don't let anybody talk you out of your dreams. Keep going, keep striving. And if you think you have something to offer, then try. What beats a try but a failure? And if you failed, it means you tried.
Well,
you see?
You're totally right. And finally, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, and thank you for your time today. Typically, a memoir, a politician or somebody in public office will release a memoir as a predicate for something that comes next. And so it brings me to an obvious question. Will we see you as a candidate for governor coming up in the next cycle in Virginia?
Vince, it's a great question, but I'm telling you, I am focused on winning back the Senate. We have to win back the Senate, and that is my sole purpose right now. I'm going all around trying to help bring in these new candidates, and so I'm helping to fundraise for them, introducing them, because what we want here in Virginia is for businesses to understand that they are welcome. Because, these beautiful roads we like, the schools we like, the quality of life, they pay for that because they're the job creators. If we don't have them, who is there? The government doesn't produce anything. And then we want the people of Virginia to know that we hear you. We see you. We're trying to fulfill those things that we were elected to do, but we cannot do it unless we have a change in government. We're not hitting on anybody but to say we have to have some common sense come back into government. And common sense is so uncommon, unfortunately, these days. And so that's why, the Democrats even voted for us because otherwise we could not have won.
Yeah.
We could not have won in Virginia.
Well, if you're ever ready to announce a public shift in focus, we'll be grateful to have you do it here. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, and congrats on the book. Again, the book is How Sweet It Is, Defending the American Dream. Thank you very much, madam. It was Tiffany Polifko, the Loudoun County School Board member, yesterday on our program who was emphasizing, look, this transgender policy that the Youngkin administration put out, it doesn't have teeth. She said that there's no meaningful consequences for school systems that tell the voters that they're going to ignore them. And that's why we wanted to put the question to everybody. We're always asking for Governor Youngkin. We'll have him back as soon as we can. The Lieutenant Governor, glad we had her on today to ask her about that. And again, I just want her to bring our questions forward. You and I have these questions. We'd like to get some answers, and hopefully that our conversation can yield some. But we do have, as I mentioned, the Attorney General for the Commonwealth, Jason Miyares, is coming on Thursday. He'll be joining the program. At least he's scheduled to at the moment. And when he does, we'll put the question to him as well. What are the consequences here for these small government bodies, in this case school boards, superintendents, telling the executive branch in Virginia, screw you. We're not going to follow your position here. We're not going to follow your transgender guidance here. And by the way, what the guidance is that the schools have to treat people on the basis of their actual sex. You only use the bathroom that God assigned you to. You're only on the sports teams that God assigned you to. It's a very simple thing. It also goes in a direction that I don't love, which is that parents get to decide if they can trans their children. I don't think abusing your kids should be on the menu of things that the schools should be abiding. But that aside, we need some real answers here. We definitely do. So we'll keep asking them. We'll keep having everybody on who's equipped to provide them, all on WMAL. It is our service to you. Coming up, a lot more on the way that the left is already trying to rig the next election. They never stop. They are relentless. And, of course, we are relentless in pursuing them and tracking down every new headline, including the resurgence of COVID. You ready for mask mandates again? What's going to happen this time? 5:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. I can't, we were talking to Joe Contra earlier about how there's this massive distortion filter that we know as the corporate news media, which will take real events and warp them into something unrecognizable and then spew them out. CNN is doing this right now. So Biden's visit to Hawaii was an unmitigated disaster upon what was already a real catastrophe, the loss of hundreds of lives, many hundreds more still missing. Joe Biden goes there. He's joking in very crude, callous ways. He's talking about how he had once had a fire in his kitchen that lasted 20 minutes. That's the real story. He says the whole house almost burned down. He almost lost his wife and his Corvette and his cat, and he's just a disgrace, this guy. He falls asleep, what appears to have fallen asleep at one of the events yesterday in Maui. So here's how CNN is covering it today. Tom Elliott over at Grabien just posting this moments ago.
President and Dr. Biden spent several hours both over Lahaina on the ground here and meeting with both first responders and victims of this tragedy at the big shelter, the War Memorial Shelter in central Maui. And he said the right things in many cases. When he came to the microphone to give his statement.
Are you listening to this? He said, I love that he even added a little caveat. In many cases, he said the right things. Is that how we grade presidents now? 70% of the things he said were the right things.
He said the thing that a lot of folks I've been hearing from for 2 weeks have been saying, that he wants Maui, the people of Maui, to help determine how this place is rebuilt.
Yes.
There was a question as
he said the platitude that everyone was looking for.
Who will have the most influence in that conversation going forward? Locals here, working class Native Hawaiians and multi-generational locals are worried of disaster capitalism, people moving in to exploit this.
The identity politics never stop here. No, the main point is not about Native Hawaiians. It's about American citizens who live there. Will they be able to rebuild their lives? That's the fundamental question.
And buy up as much land as they can in this paradise and rebuild it for their interests as well. The president promises that won't happen. It remains to be seen. There's a lot of forces at play here right now.
So I'm sorry, what is Biden promising exactly? He's going to distort the real estate market in Western Maui? He's going to do what? It's a command economy now because Biden decides to snap his fingers? Is that how it works? Obviously, Biden is of the opinion that he can decide that you don't need to pay rent to your landlord. That's the position that he's taken as an administration. So now he controls the entire Western Maui real estate market.
He did serve as empathizer-in-chief after 5 days of being mostly...
Barf! How can you have any self-respect to perform such an intimate act on Joe Biden on national television? Come on. He was the empathizer-in-chief. This guy's Bill Weir at CNN. He's a climate catastrophizer, right? He's gone on TV before to tell us that we're going to destroy the planet if we fly anywhere. Of course, he flew into Maui, and he's dressed in disaster casual. They've always, have you ever noticed that the guys who go to these disaster scenes, these reporters, they don't bother to put any product in their hair, no gel or anything. They don't comb it at all. It has to be wind-strewn, just so you know that they're in the middle of a storm. The storm was like 20 days ago. I was like, and he looks like he just got done the hurricane. He's like, he hasn't shaved for 8 weeks. He's like, I'm out here. Looking like Tom Hanks in Castaway. Like, I'm here in the rubble.
There's a lot of forces at play here right now. He did serve as empathizer-in-chief after 5 days of being mostly silent on the issue publicly, but the governor said he was working behind the scenes to assure first responders that the feds had their back on
the courtesies they give this guy after being mostly silent. But the governor did say that he was working extensively behind the scenes. Hey, I've seen what the behind the scenes look like. They weren't behind the scenes. They were in front of the scenes. There are long distance photos of him sitting on a beach being shirtless and fat and old. He was really working hard behind the scenes. Every waking minute he was on this case. Really? Because, well, at least in the sleeping minutes, it looks like he's just hanging out in the sun on the beach. Did you see the photo of him in Delaware on his vacation? It was crazy. I've never done this at the beach. Where he went to the beach and he was facing away from the coastline. They had an umbrella up over his head, and he's facing back towards like the homes or whatever's on the shoreline, but not the water. Have you ever gone to the beach and not stared at the water? And even when your eyes are closed, your body is positioned in the direction of the water. If you've got an umbrella, it's not like you're trying to avoid the sun to your eyes or whatever. Can you explain this to me? Why was he facing away from the water? It doesn't. Maybe the extension cord only goes so far.
Yes. He shared the stories we're familiar with of losing his daughter and wife and wondering if his sons had survived a car accident early in his political career. And that's what so many people here are going through now. The list of the missing.
No, they're not. They're not going through that. They're not going through his personal tragedy. They're going through their own tragedy. A devastation. The loss of their children and neighbors. Did you see the story of the 15-year-old boy? He didn't make it to 15. His 15th birthday was just days away. It was the last day before school started up again in Hawaii. It is just heart-wrenching to hear this story. And his mother couldn't get back to her child, her teenage boy. She couldn't get back to him. She tried to. She was stopped by first responders who said, you can't go in there. She said, I have to. She got past the cops. She ended up getting a ride. Somebody had a motorcycle. They took her as close to the fire as they could get her. She couldn't get in through the flames to get to her boy. It wouldn't be until 2 days later when they could finally get to their home. And they did, and they found their young boy holding the dog dead on the floor of their home, burned to a crisp. They carried his body away. They ended up having the birthday party just days later as a gathering, as a memorial, bringing people together. But that's what that community is dealing with. And it's not about Joe Biden, that narcissistic buffoon. It's not about him. And here's the media. Can you imagine just running cover for this guy? This disgrace. A CNN guy, Bill Weir, says, Biden did the right things. He served as empathizer in chief. Is that what you saw? Certainly not what we heard from the people of Maui. Many of the people of Maui screaming obscenities at Joe Biden, saying too little, too late. Where were you? Why did it take you 13 days to get here?
According to the mayor of Maui, it was whittled from over 2,000 by the FBI and authorities down to around 850 now. That still seems impossibly high this many days, almost 2 weeks now after the fire broke out. Forensic anthropologists, though, say historically scenes like this can take months or even years to sort out the missing. You can hope there's still some confusion as to who's on that list.
Anyway, that's CNN's coverage today. So they're sucking up to Biden. And they weren't alone. Of course, you get political hacks out there doing the same thing. Bill Hemmer on Fox News. Was this yesterday this took place? It was this morning. Bill Hemmer on Fox News was talking to a former Obama deputy White House chief of staff. The guy's called Jim Messina. You've probably seen him. Kind of a weird-looking dude. And Bill's talking to Jim, and Jim talks about how great Biden is at all of this.
When politicians try and assimilate and relate like that and it fails because it's not real, it just flops.
I'm not sure we're going to agree on this one, Bill. I think his empathy, his stories, his way he connects with voters are why he won the 2020 presidential election. It's why he's going to win again next time. You
remember all the times we got to see him in public telling stories?
His empathy and a connection with voters that press and D.C. pundits like me don't.
It's just garbage, because you think back to the 2020 election. You remember what that looked like? It was Biden in his basement staring at a teleprompter and doing these controlled interviews. They weren't even interviews. They were choreographed. There was a time he was on one of the nightly shows, one of the late night shows, and he was in the middle of like pretending to tell an off the cuff story, and he held up a picture of his family. Remember this? In a framed picture. He held up a picture, and on the picture frame, the glass was reflective, like a lot of normal picture frames would be. And the glass reflected back a teleprompter with all of his talking points directly to the camera. This is the kind of folksy, off-the-cuff connection that Joe Biden is able to create at any given moment. One of the features of Joe Biden's trip to Maui is that they didn't have teleprompters because he was in the wreckage. He had to read his speech off of a piece of paper. It was awful. It was awful. Because, no, actually, he's not actually good at this off-the-cuff stuff. And then the stuff he does try to do off-the-cuff, extemporaneously, it's not really extemporaneous. It just keeps on reviving the old fishtail that he told 50 times and adding some new ridiculous detail to it. And Jill is standing next to him, and she's letting this happen. Jill is a part of the story of the fire in their kitchen. Jill was there for all of this. Jill made the phone call. And she stands there and just nods along as he lies about the story. She's as guilty as he is.
I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. Years ago, now 15 years ago, I was...
What is the monologue in her head like? You know what I mean? Like, what is she thinking to herself at this moment? She's like, don't display it, but he's definitely lying. Like, that definitely didn't happen, but don't let on.
In Washington, doing Meet the Press. It was a sunny Sunday, and lightning struck at home on a little lake. It's outside of our home, not a lake, a big pond, and hit a wire and came up underneath our home into the heating ducts, the air conditioning duct. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, by
the way, what is he talking about? A wire underneath his air conditioning duct? What does that even mean exactly? There are wires under your ducts?
67 Corvette and my cat. But all kidding aside.
Oh, he's kidding.
I watched the firefighters.
Which part was kidding?
The way they responded.
What part was the joke? Was it that your house was about to be burning down, that your wife almost died, or that the Corvette almost was caught up in flames? Your precious Corvette next to your classified documents. Your kitten almost died. What was the joke part of that? All kidding aside, he says. Again, the Associated Press reported the fire was 20 minutes. It was at most. It was in the kitchen, and it was easily contained. Biden has told this story a number of times, and he's always told it in ridiculous ways. Here he is in January of 2022 speaking to victims of a wildfire in Colorado.
Jill and I have not gone through what you have gone through, but we have had lightning strike our home and almost lose our home. And
wait, the lightning strike was now on the home. It wasn't on some distant wire that traveled under his home and went to an air conditioning duct.
we only lost about 25% of it. We were able to rebuild.
25% of the home was apparently the entire kitchen? Is that what he's saying?
But the hard part is the memorabilia you lost. The special things that you had put away that you lost.
He's just making it up. March of 2022, that would be 3 months later. He told the International Association of Firefighters that the entire house was on fire and that he lost every piece of furniture in the home.
Lightning struck and a pond behind my house went up underneath.
Once again now striking the pond, not a small lake.
Conduit caught fire underneath the floorboards of my house.
Now it's under the floorboards, not the air conditioning ducts.
And it was during the summer. Air conditioning was on. Smoke that thick, all 3 stories. The reason I can
all 3 stories, not just the kitchen.
Assure you that is because every piece of furniture had to be replaced. Because
all of it, all the furniture.
Of the smoke. But guess what? My fire company was there to go in and save my wife, get her out, the cat, and my '67 Corvette. Lightning.
Yeah. So that's Biden's version of events. He did it again in October of 2022. This is last year in Florida after Hurricane Ian.
I know from experience how much anxiety and fear and concern there are in the people. We didn't lose our whole home, but lightning struck and we lost an awful lot of it about 15 years ago.
They lost an awful lot of their home, he said, yet again, lying. Same year, same month, October 2022. This is the Summit on Fire Prevention and Control.
I was doing Meet the Press, and lightning struck in a little pond behind my house.
Little pond now. It was a little lake, then it was a big pond. Now it's a little pond.
Up through the ground into the air conditioning system.
Into the system now, not the duct.
Ended up generating thick black smoke, literally,
which means not at all.
Of those proportions, and from the basement to the 3rd floor, the attic, everything was ruined. And
everything in the house was ruined.
Kitchen floor, we almost lost a couple firefighters, they tell me.
They almost lost a couple people.
Because the kitchen floor was the burning between the beams in the house, in addition to almost collapsed into the basement.
Yeah, but luckily Joe Biden was there. He had an axe and his aviators, and he was able to make his way through the home and rescue everyone. Had he not been there, who knows what damage would have been caused? Who knows? And good thing he saved the Corvette. Because obviously it would need to appear in later insane stories in his life, including that he kept his classified... How could he keep his classified documents next to his classified Corvette if he had lost it in the fire? An unacceptable outcome. All right, hold tight. We've got COVID updates for you coming up as some of the... Can you believe it? COVID restrictions are coming back just in time for the 2024 election. Woo! It's 5:50 now. I'm going to have to go back through some of that audio to verify. Somebody points out on Twitter, Marco Mack, thank you, that apparently in one of those clips that I played, Biden referenced watching the firefighters rush in. You'll remember that in other versions of the story, he was doing Meet the Press at that very moment in Washington, D.C., many, many, many miles away. Oh, good old Amtrak Joe. That Amtrak can move quickly, I'll tell you. Get you home so you can witness the 20-minute fire. There are now local colleges in the Georgia area, at least, in the Atlanta area, that are reimposing COVID mask mandates on the students as things move along. And they're not the only one. We're seeing a number of these stories starting to pop up. Well, COVID is surging. A variant is surging. The White House is preparing to tell people to take more boosters. And now you have actual health systems and schools. A college in Georgia has reinstated mask mandates, the Washington Examiner reports, and physical distancing at its premises as a precaution against COVID-19 cases. Morris Brown College, based in Atlanta, made the announcement on social media, informing students these mandates would be reinstated immediately following reports of positive COVID-19 cases among students in the Atlanta University Center. They say that the masks will be worn for the next 14 days. I remember that number. 14 days, huh? Is that all we need to slow the spread? 14 days. That'll be great. I'll check back in 14 days to see where they are in this timeline. With those masks that don't stop the spread of anything except common sense. The masks. Yeah. We're watching them rig the election. It's happening. They want to bring back the good old days of COVID. It's on the way. Keep your eyes open. Here we go. The great one, Mark Levin, up next here on WMAL.
This opportunity is valued at more than $2,600. That's right, a $2,600 vacation for $299, and it's all-inclusive, meaning all your food and drinks are included. Attendance is required at a presentation for Vacation Club ownership, but you're there for 5 days, and there's no purchase necessary, so it's a win-win. Plus, Sweet Deals offers a 30-day money-back guarantee if you change your mind. Do not